Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast that comes to you from the strife-torn Ukrainian capital Kyiv. I'm Gaurav Sawant. This is day 33 of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And India Today has the biggest team of reporters getting you a 360-degree perspective on this big story from Kyiv to Kharkiv and Donetsk.
Russia inches towards capital Kyiv. Putin's missile fury on full display. Ukraine burns under Russia's phase 2. But defenders unwilling to bend the knee. UK's Starstreak game changer for Ukraine. Who will win? Putin's ambition versus Zelensky's resilience. With Gaurav Sawant from War Zone.
Russian forces have mounted a multiple-pronged attack for the capture of Kyiv. There were rocket strikes and missile strikes early this morning on Kyiv. Now, several routes leading to Kyiv were targeted in the Russian missile and rocket strike. There was a swift counter-attack and response. The situation remains extremely grim as the Russians now appear to be moving forward from multiple new fronts.
Штук 20 пролетіло.
The raging battle for capital city Kyiv continues, and Moscow is increasing both intensity of attacks and ferocity of weaponry, aiming to make the phase 2 of the ongoing war even deadlier. Russian troops are attempting to advance on Kyiv from the northwest and the east, capturing nearby roads and villages. But Ukraine is not backing down. Russian forces are currently being held back by Ukrainian fightback in outskirts of Kyiv.
Early this morning, there was intense shelling reported from the north, northeast and west, 3 directions in Kyiv, and that is where the Russian forces are reportedly advancing. So initially there was a feeling that there would be a lull since negotiations are happening, but there appears to be an intensification in the operations that are being carried out by the Russians.
Villages surrounding Kyiv, including Bashiv, Stoyanka and Sitnyaki, are in ruins. Their infrastructure damaged, buildings destroyed and streets deserted.
The workers are still working and they're making sure that in case of any heavy bombardment in this area in Sofia Square, this statue, which is an ancient statue, is a heritage of the city, is protected and is not damaged in any kind of air attacks from the Russian forces.
Destroyed tanks, armored vehicles dot the landscape, indicating a massive trail of destruction. India Today met a group of US war veterans who have arrived in Kyiv to help Ukraine fight back.
So, Marshall incidentally is a combat veteran. He's had extensive tours of duty overseas with the US Armed Forces. John, you're helping as a volunteer. What do you do?
So I'm actually bringing donations from Canada. I'll be volunteering at the Medika border crossing, just helping refugees. I passed through there a couple days ago. They definitely need all the assistance that they can get, 100%.
Despite continued attacks from Kyiv, some residents of Kyiv who fled the capital city are slowly returning home.
Now that the two of you are back and you're on rotation, you're on R&R right now, you'll go back to the front line.
Yes, next week, approximately next week.
So the time that you're spending together, and I don't want to, be as, take away a lot of your time, but you do intend to now come together for a longer period, I believe.
Of course, of course. Now we have time for a week, and we try to work, try to drink a coffee, and maybe bicycle tomorrow. Of course, I find the flowers for she and try to make happy moments.
When you try to make happy moments, you're also planning to spend your life together, I believe. That was the conversation the two of you were having when we met.
Мы когда с тобой гуляем, ты планируешь, что мы и дальше будем с тобой гулять, будем дальше встречаться?
Конечно, конечно же. Я
Of
надеюсь...
course, we will try and we make everything what we can for this. And ты надеешься, что...
Да, я надеюсь, что мы будем вместе.
She hope we will be together.
I wish you all the best, sincerely. The two of them looked lovely together, and that's when we walked up to them and struck a conversation. Amidst all the death and destruction and gloom, there is this story of life, there is this story of happiness.
Local churches becoming rallying points for residents. With Gaurav Sawant and Rajesh Pawar in Kyiv war zone. Bureau Report, India Today.
For 33 days and counting, Ukraine has desperately asked the West for surface-to-air missiles and fighter jets. They've also asked the West to declare a no-fly zone over Ukraine. That hasn't happened. The United Kingdom has, however, approved the supply of Starstreak missiles. Now, this could well prove to be a game changer as far as Ukraine is concerned. And there is tremendous excitement should Ukraine actually get Starstreak on ground. Surface-to-air missiles that can travel 3 times the speed of sound and can take down low-flying enemy aircraft and helicopters. But will the Starstreak actually be supplied, and when, remains the big question. But truly, if supplied, then it would increase the challenges for Russian fighter pilots and helicopter pilots in this region.
Over 33 days, Russian aircraft have been raining hell on Ukraine. But Russian aircraft have also been facing hell in the country. With large numbers of fighters and helicopters brought down by bruised but determined Ukrainian air defense units. Since the beginning of the war, Ukraine has been awash with lethal Stinger shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles, a weapon that has imposed a huge cost on Russia's air power superiority and will to dominate. But now, after over a month of constant bombardment, with its cities reeling from a second wave of Putin's aerial strikes, a new weapon is flowing into Ukraine. One that will give it even more teeth against Putin's air force. Days after the NATO summit in Brussels, the Boris Johnson government in the United Kingdom has decided to supply Ukraine with Starstreak, the fastest short-range air defense missile system in existence. The man-portable shoulder-fired Starstreak system fires missiles that accelerate to up to 4 times the speed of sound, blindingly zooming into their targets. The weapon then launches 3 laser beam-riding sub-munitions, increasing the likelihood of a successful hit on their target. The Starstreak has a number of advantages over the Stinger and Igla systems currently being used by Ukrainian air defense troops. Most notably, the Starstreak cannot be jammed by infrared or radar countermeasures. Britain's air defense commander has declared that Russian pilots will think twice about getting into their planes after British soldiers have trained their Ukrainian counterparts to fire Starstreak. With this latest NATO weapon entering a high-tech battlefield, will this give Putin's air power impulses reason to stay grounded? Or has Putin already war-gamed Ukraine's new defenses? Watch this space to find out what happens next. Bureau Report, India Today.
Russian missiles continue to pound Ukraine, and it's not just the capital Kyiv, but multiple cities are repeatedly being targeted, and not just from the skies or ground, but even from sea. Now, 4 caliber missiles fired by the Buyan missile boats have repeatedly targeted Ukrainian vital assets and vital points. Ukraine, no part of it is safe, either from the skies or ground, and now even from the seas, as India Today's Shiv Aru gets you more in this report.
A brooding night sky over the Black Sea, torn apart by 4 caliber cruise missiles launched from a Russian Navy Buyan M missile boat. Their targets, Ukrainian sites near the country's capital, Kyiv. Capable of hitting targets hundreds of kilometers away with devastating accuracy, the use of caliber cruise missiles signals a shift into the realm of advanced weaponry in the second phase of this war. The Russian Ministry of Defense has flaunted this video of the Iskander short-range ballistic missile as well, being used to target a claimed foreign mercenary unit using a Kyiv shopping mall as a reloading base for its rocket units. The third major Russian missile system being used is the Yakhont high-speed cruise missile, seen here being launched against a Ukrainian weapons depot in the western part of the country. The Yakhont is a progenitor of the Indo-Russian BrahMos missile in service with the Indian Armed Forces. And the missile that Russia has used for the first time in combat, the Kinzhal hypersonic air-launched cruise missile, seen here smashing into a Ukrainian underground weapons depot. The Kinzhal is a nuclear-capable weapon that has of course been used only with conventional warheads in Ukraine. Four advanced Russian missile systems, all four being used in anger against Ukraine. The damage they're causing, plain for their makers and the world to see. Of course, there's another Russian missile that's on operational alert amidst this Ukrainian crisis. A weapon stored away secretly inside Russia's Bore-class nuclear ballistic missile submarines. A weapon that will hopefully never be used. The Bulava, a submarine-launched intercontinental range ballistic missile. A Cold War weapon that could bring about the end of the world if ever fired in anger. A weapon whose heightened state of alert has sparked nuclear fears across the world. As Russia's war in Ukraine rumbles forward in its second month, missile power will define the onward march. Bureau Report, India Today.
The Russian armed forces are amongst the deadliest in the world. Their army, navy, air force, missile force, their nuclear force. Now, it is the second strongest armed forces in the world. Their nuclear stockpile, the largest in the world. They have air-launched, ship-launched, submarine-launched and ground-launched nuclear missiles, including intercontinental ballistic missiles. I now want to cut across to India Today's Shiv Aru to help us break down and understand the might of the Russian forces.
Use of advanced, long-range, costly missile systems has come to become one of the defining features of the second month of Russia's invasion in Ukraine. Just take a look at the weapons they're being used, as you saw in that report. The first most visible one is the Caliber. That's a cruise missile. It's a long-range cruise missile that was launched from the Buyan M missile boats, part of the Black Sea Fleet. These can be fired from ships, from submarine, as well as from air. A lesser variant of this is also, in the Indian Armed Forces. These can attain extremely high speeds, sometimes supersonic speeds as well. And like I said, they have very, very long, credible ranges. So the Caliber cruise missile has ranges of up to 4,500 kilometers in the more advanced variants. The next big missile system that Russia has brought to bear in this second phase of the conflict, is the Iskander missile system. It contains a hybrid of both ballistic as well as cruise missile systems. These are radar-evading weapons that have been designed, for stealthy attacks. These are short-range ballistic missiles and cruise missiles which are part of this, and videos put out by the Russian armed forces suggest that the Iskander has been used quite a bit in the conflict so far, and you're going to see much more of the Iskander being used in the second phase of this battle. Then we move on to the third big weapon system that is being used here, which is the Yakhont, called the Onyx in Russian service. It's very similar to the BrahMos, which we here in India know so well about. It's a supersonic cruise missile, short range, once again about 300 to 400 kilometers, has been used to hit specific, high-value targets, including weapons depots in Russia. This is a missile system that makes it, one of the fastest missiles in the world in its class, very similar to the BrahMos, that derives from the technology there. And finally is the Kinjal, which is an air-launched hybrid missile. It's usually a nuclear-capable delivery system, but obviously has been used only with a conventional warhead, thankfully, in Ukraine so far. And notably, the Kinjal is a weapon that's been used for the first time in anger, for the first time in combat during the Ukraine crisis. So 4 missile systems, making it very clear that Russia has had enough of using, baseline military equipment like tanks, and is now resorting to using much more expensive equipment to cause damage in Ukraine.
Mariupol, once a bustling industrial sector, a coal plant, the Donbass region is considered one of the core issues in this battle. Before this battle started, Russia or Russian-backed forces were in control of 30% of Donetsk and Luhansk. Now they're almost in control of between 70 to 80% of this territory. But why is Mariupol so crucial for Russians? They want to show victory, and to show that victory, they need to be in control not just of Mariupol, but that region that goes all the way from Mariupol down to Crimea, so that water supply to Crimea can be maintained. And for this, Mariupol has now been reduced virtually to rubble. Multiple buildings have been decimated. The Russian forces are now on the streets of Mariupol, even as reports come in that the Ukrainian forces have mounted a swift counter-attack to take back some territory. But vital assets and vital points in the Donbass region, to a very large extent, are now completely in Russian control, as our next report tells you.
Over 3,000 killed. Thousands forcibly taken to Russia as prisoners. Many, many more injured. No building standing without damage. This is the horrifying story of Mariupol. The Ukrainian city of 5.5 lakh, now in absolute ruins. The destruction is near total. Bombarded, hit with missiles, struck with massive airstrikes relentlessly. The sprawling port city of Mariupol has been wasted by Russian heavy artillery fire. Its once plush and picturesque neighborhoods now unrecognizable and reduced to ghost towns. Many streets are seen littered with unclaimed corpses and civilians killed in airstrikes. Ukraine has also accused Moscow of forcibly moving out over 40,000 citizens from Mariupol to Russia without consent from Ukrainian government. The port city, lying in direct line of Russian fire and invasion, has seen toddlers and newborns dying in Russian attacks. Hundreds had perished earlier when Russia bombed a theatre where civilians had taken shelter. Russia has been accused of using super powerful bombs after trapping nearly 2 lakh people and denying them safe passage. France has also raised concerns over the humanitarian catastrophe in Mariupol and called for urgent international intervention. French Foreign Minister called Mariupol the new Aleppo, drawing parallels with the total destruction of the Syrian city.
Mariupol, c'est la guerre des sièges. Mariupol is a siege war that Russia has been entering for a month now. And siege warfare is horrible warfare since civilian populations are being massacred and annihilated.
Ukrainian President Zelensky slammed Russian forces for targeting civilians, including bombing a school sheltering women and children.
Destroyed schools, churches, houses. All the people are killed and all the children are killed. The air bomb on the maternity hospital is the final proof that the genocide of the Ukrainians is taking place.
Half of Mariupol's population is still trapped, becoming victims of President Putin's war game. And time is running out for Mariupol real fast. Bureau Report, India Today.
India Today is the only channel to get you 360-degree perspective on this story. We're telling you what's happening in Ukraine. We'll also tell you what's happening on the Russian side. India Today's Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, is in Donetsk. And Donetsk, remember, the government in Moscow, President Putin had declared both Luhansk and Donetsk as independent republics. Now they have additional territory. Geeta Mohan on ground zero in Donetsk with this report.
We are here in the heart of Donetsk city. This is the Artima street, and you can see all the malls, the major restaurants, clubs, all of these places have been shut down. They're shut because of the situation on the ground. Only a few bare minimum grocery stores, some of the shopping centers are open. All the rest are absolutely shut with no products to sell. No people over here actually to come and buy the products. With the journalist Satya Rautre in Donetsk, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. US President Joe Biden's statement in Warsaw at the royal castle about the Russian President Vladimir Putin has stirred a hornet's nest. The White House, the State Department, Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, they've had to clarify the American president's statement saying that regime change in Moscow wasn't America's agenda. What President Biden was actually talking about was only to ensure that Russian President Vladimir Putin does not have the power to change regimes in the neighborhood. But the American president has been in the eye of a storm for a number of statements for which the White House has had to issue a clarification, even in the past.
It was Saturday in Ukraine when the bombs began falling on Lviv to the west of the country. The city had seen relative calm over the month of war, but the strikes at a fuel depot sent smoke and flames billowing into the air. At about the same time, around 400 kilometers further west, President Joe Biden of USA was meeting Ukrainian refugees at the National Stadium of Poland in Warsaw. When reporters asked him what he thought of President Putin of Russia, the US president said he's a butcher.
You see this and you're dealing every day with Vladimir Putin. I mean, look at what he's done to these people. What does it make you think? He's a butcher.
If Putin was sending a message to Biden by bombing Western Ukraine because the US president was in neighboring Poland, then Biden too had a message for Putin later that evening.
Over the last 30 years, the forces of autocracy.
It was a much-awaited speech from one who is called the leader of the free world. At the end of his 3-day visit to Europe, in the backdrop of the raging war to his east, President Joe Biden's words would in effect indicate the direction Western strategy would take in the days to come. For 27 minutes, the President of the United States spoke, showing full support for Ukraine and drawing out the parameters of Western response to Russian action. And then suddenly, 27 minutes later, at the very end of his speech, he dropped an ad-libbed bombshell.
Russia's choice we will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principles, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. God bless you all, and may God defend our freedom.
Those 9 ad-libbed words, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power," set off alarm bells all over the diplomatic world. It had US officials scrambling to damage control, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken clarified that regime change in Russia was not on US agenda.
Made the point last night that
But this was typical Joe Biden. He had often been accused of letting his mouth run away from prudence. During his 2008 campaign for presidential nomination, Biden had described another contender as the first mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. That contender was Barack Obama, whose running mate he later became and stayed vice president during the Obama presidency. On Ukraine, as president of the United States, Joe Biden had been building up to getting his words get the better of US policy.
I think he is a war criminal.
In the matter of a week, Biden had not only called Putin a war criminal, he also referred to him as a murderous dictator, a pure thug who is waging an immoral war against the people of Ukraine. He said the Russian invasion of Ukraine was inhuman. Some of what Joe Biden sometimes says is considered nothing more important than a gaffe. Like when he said Iranian instead of Ukrainian during his State of the Union address on 1st of March.
Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people.
But there are times when the seasoned politician that he is, his verbal slip-ups may actually be pointing to how things really are. But then, as the President of the United States, he knows the weight his words carry. During his presidential campaign, Joe Biden often told his audience how the words of a president can matter when they can send men and women to war, and how they can also bring peace.
The apprehension now is that rocket attacks, air attacks and the missile strikes on and around Kyiv will intensify in the days ahead. India Today will continue to report from ground zero, but that is all that camera person Lalit Mohan Joshi and I have for you on this special broadcast from Kyiv, Ukraine. Many thanks for watching. For all the latest news and updates, stay with India Today.